Hey everyone, welcome back to Lisa's Book Nook. We're reading The Scourge by A.G. Henley, and we're on chapter 4. The sun sets somewhere outside the perpetual night of the caves. I lie awake, wondering what will happen when the three find out I gave the Lofties water. I thought about trying to explain myself to Aloe, but in the end I didn't. I disobeyed the council's orders, and hers in particular. I didn't do my duty. That's something Aloe would never understand. Still, I can't quite bring myself to regret it. The swim was incredibly rejuvenating, for one thing, and Perry probably broke a half-dozen lofty rules to set it up for me. But the real reason I disobeyed was that I disagreed with the three's decision to cut off the Lofties' water. I don't know how those sacks of water ended up being less than full, but I don't believe the Lofties had anything to do with it. I'm not going to condemn them to thirst for something they didn't do, whatever the council says. I lie with one arm pillowing my head and listen to the people settle in for the night. I wonder what Perry's doing, if he's sleeping. I wonder about his family, if he has many friends, if he's already partnered or intended for someone. I didn't think of that possibility when I asked him to dance at the summer solstice. I asked on a whim, what would it have felt like to have his bow-calloused hands on my waist, leading me around the fire? I frowned. Dancing, and particularly dancing with a Lofty, isn't on the agenda now or any time soon. Surviving the three is, and so it's getting through another day of the Scourge. The creatures should be leaving soon, unless they don't. The unpredictability of their behavior is what makes staying in the cave so frustrating. We have no control. The darkness and deprivation is difficult, and each day that passes creates a greater strain on the people, not to mention on our stores of food and supplies. I hear footsteps and a quiet tapping of a cane. Aloe. Fennel, she says, and I know she knows of my deceit. I don't even pretend to be asleep. Come with me, now. I rise and follow the sound of her stick, trying to avoid the small groups of sleeping people. I'm nervous, but resigned. I made a decision. I'll have to live with the consequences. Aloe doesn't speak as she leads me into one of the passages off the main cave. It's even darker here and colder. I'm wrapped in an extra blanket from the storeroom, and I burrow into it, my hands trembling. I sense the low but concentrated light of a torch ahead. Whispering voices fall silent as we approach. Fennel, did you give your keeper our message? Sable asks. He sounds unfazed as always, but there's an unexpected note in his voice, like stepping into what you think is lukewarm water and finding it's chilled. I take a deep breath. No. Why not? I wasn't sure I filled those sacks to the top. I did think it was fair to accuse the Lofties of stealing the water when it might have been my mistake. So you deliberately disobeyed our orders? Adder almost hisses. I think it's fairly clear that the situation, so I don't answer. How much water did you give them? What they asked for. 2 sacks, I say. They all gasp. 2? 2 sacks? Aloe says. When you only brought 1 to us? I hadn't thought about how that would sound. I was following the rest of your orders to bring 1 sack back with me. You bring more water to the Lofties than you do your own people, Adder says. Are the flesh eaters affecting your mind? No. My shout rockets back and forth across the narrow passageway. Adder touches a nerve. The Scourge has been known to drive people mad from seconds of exposure, and I've had more than my fair share of intimate contact with the creatures in the last few days. Why did you act against our wishes? Aloe asks. I think I'm telling them about Perry's gift to me. I want to explain how much that swim meant, how it helped return me to myself, so I could do my duty for my people. But if the Lofties hear about it, Perry could be punished. He might be replaced as my keeper, and I'm not sure I'm ready to admit, even to myself, how much I already rely on him being in those trees. I reach for Aloe's hand, but I can't find it. I turn my palm up in a gesture of pleading. I did what I thought was right. There's a sound behind me in the tunnel. "Who's there?" Sable calls. Footsteps shuffle away. "Stop!" Adder demands, moving towards the sound. There's a short scuffle, then two sets of footsteps come back. "What's this about?" Sable asks. I thought she knew something about when they were leaving, a familiar, wheedling voice says. It's Thistle, a middle-aged woman who helps with the washing and repairing of the community's clothing. She isn't well suited for laundering. She's known to be careless and prone to laziness, but she enjoys her duties. The constant stream of people dropping off and picking up their washing means she's never short on gossip. I'm not surprised to find her eavesdropping on a meeting of the three in the middle of the night in the black of a frigid tunnel. The council always lets the community know when the Scourge shows signs of leaving, Aloe says, her voice stern. You know that. Yes, but there's been talk, rumors that the Lofties are taking our water because they know the flesh-eaters aren't leaving quickly this time. Thistle says, I thought Fennel might know more. This girl doesn't know anything, Adder says coldly. But you, on the other hand, know better than to snoop around listening to the council's private proceedings. We'll inform the people the moment we have news of the Scourge departure, as always, Sable soothes. Now come with me. He and Thistle walk back along the passageway towards the main cave. She'll talk, Aloe mutters as her footsteps fade. The community will know everything we said by breakfast. I hope you're proud of yourself, Adder says to me. They'll know of your disobedience and deceit now. We'll discuss an appropriate punishment for you, but in the meantime, you might want to sleep. I have a feeling you'll need every bit of your strength tomorrow. I nod and follow them back down the passageway. When we reach the cave, I call to Aloe in a low voice. I'll speak with you in the morning, she says. Her voice is flat, but I hear a hint of regret. I creep back to my bedroll, where I lie awake, wondering what the morning will bring. You better wake up, Elin's voice drifts through my troubled dreams. I try to roll over. Come on, Finn, wake up. This is serious. What happened last night? Callie says from my other side. I want to pull my bedroll over my head and block them out, but instead I reluctantly set up. What did you hear? We heard the three told you not to get water for the Lofties yesterday, but you did anyway. We heard you're giving them extra water because somehow you know the flesh eaters aren't leaving. And we heard, her voice drops lower, you gave the Lofties more water than you brought us, but we knew that part wasn't true. That's about the only part that is true. I raise myself up to my elbows. So Thistle and her prying nose and big ears overheard, and now everybody knows. Yes, but that's not all, Elin says. What now? Neither of them answers. What is it? You tell her, Callie says, her voice breaking. Jackal snuck out of the caves this morning and set fire under one of the Lofties' walkways, Elin said. What? I shoot all the way up, the bedroll dropping off my shoulders. They shot and killed him, Callie whispers, and when Rose heard, she sort of lost her mind and ran out to look for him. She hasn't come back. Aloe went after her, but she couldn't find her. They're both gone? I ask. Mother thinks so, Elin says. Nausea grips me like I swallow one of the nasty brews our herbalist, Marjoram, concocts. Rose, Jackal, and their unborn child. I can still feel the warm swell of Rose's belly under my hand. This is my fault. No, it's not, Elin says, squeezing my shoulders. No one made Jack go out there. He took being in the caves really hard because of Rose and the baby and all. He kept saying he wished he could make the Lofties pay for their theft. I guess that this was how he decided to do it. But if I'd done exactly what the three told me to do, maybe he wouldn't have felt like he needed to set the fire. "Why didn't you do what they said?" Callie asked gently. "I didn't think it was fair. I didn't think the Lofties stole the water. I tried to explain my actions without telling them about Perry and the swim. My excuse sounds as weak this time as it did with the three. Given the consequences, no explanation will be good enough now." "Adder's furious," Elin says. "I thought his head was going to pop off when he heard about Jack and Rose. He chucked his cup against the wall, barely missed Bream." "Were any Lofties hurt in the fire?" "No, they put it out with their water," Callie says. Was that an accusatory note in her voice? "Then why did they kill Jackal?" "Ask your keeper," she says. "Father said he was the shooter. Looks like he proved how good he is with a bow and arrow." "Perry shot Jackal?" The grief intensifies, clarified by anger. "How could he kill a defenseless groundling, especially when his people had the water I provided them with, to put out the fire? How could he do it, and why did I ever think I could trust him?" After breakfast, Sable makes a solemn announcement about the deaths of Jackal and Rose. Amid quiet sobs, he reminds us we need to be strong during the difficult times when the Scourge is here, to stick together and to trust in the three to make the decisions that will be best for the community. He urges us not to take matters into our own hands like Jackal did. Then he calls me up to the front. People move out of my path, murmuring. Some voices sound angry, some sympathetic. I keep my head up, but my heart stutters, and sweat musters under my arms. Fennel, being honored with the sightlessness, and thus protected from the Scourge, you have more responsibility than most of your peers. Normally, you perform your duties in a manner that makes our community proud. Yesterday, however, you displayed a serious lapse of judgment that may have contributed to the deaths of several groundlings. I know you regret this lapse, and I know you will not allow it to happen again." I nod, not trusting my voice. "Still, there must be a punishment," Sable says. "Today you will collect 6 sacks of water and transport them here without assistance. You will not collect any for the Lofties." He pauses. The crowd is silent. The torches on the wall flicker and crack. "And you will spend the night in the forest among the Scourge, as a reminder that you can either stand together with our community, or you will stand alone." Shocked murmurs roll through the cave. "Do you understand what's expected of you?" I nod again. "Then go and perform your duty." I'm burning with guilt, anger, and fear, but I must obey the decision of the three. Legs trembling, I push through the silent stairs to the tunnel entrance. As I step into the dark passageway, someone presses a pouch into my hand. "Bread, dried meat, and herbs from Mother," Elin whispers in my ear. He sounds like he's crying. I kiss his cheek and thank him. Then I walk until the tunnel swallows me, hiding my own tears in its familiar, comforting blackness. I sit at the entrance to the cave, my back against the sun-warmed wall. Flesh-eaters pace outside, shrieking and howling at me. They're hungry as always. I'm torturing them, intentionally, by setting just out of their reach. I should go. It's going to be a long day. I have no idea whether Perry will be waiting for me or what he'll say, but it doesn't matter. I've already decided I'll collect 6 sacks of water without his help. After last night, it's obvious I can't trust him as much as I had hoped otherwise. I wipe away my tears, stand up, and march into the sunlight towards the forest. The creatures scream all around me. I scream back, until it occurs to me I must look mad having a shouting match with a pack of half-humans. I stop and realize Perry's yelling too. I can barely hear him over the flesh-eater's furious noise. "Fennel, I need to talk to you." "Go away," I shout, and continue on to the clearing. Sweat trickles down the back of my neck. It's steaming, even at this early hour. He follows me through the trees. "I didn't want to shoot him. It was my duty. I was a lookout this morning." "Your duty? To kill an unarmed man?" "He was frustrated from staying in the caves for days. He didn't do any real harm." The creatures groan. I notice, not for the first time, that the more upset I am, the more agitated they become. "Did you know his partner was pregnant?" I say. and that she left the caves to find him, and that she was taken by... I choke my tears. I don't want to completely break down again. I heard, he says. I'm sorry. Sure you are, I say. You Lofties are known for your compassion, aren't you? Always looking out for us, up in your safe little nests. More like looking down on us. I'm going too far, but I can't seem to stop now that I've started. Why are you even pretending to be my friend, with your swim and your compliments? You said I don't need a keeper, and now I don't want one. Stop following me around. Leave me alone. I can't do that. His voice was low. And I can't do anything to stop you, can I? Then do what you have to do, but might not want to exert yourself too much. You won't be getting any water from us today. We anticipated that. Aren't you the clever ones? I clamped my lips shut. I'm probably close to getting shot too. It's time to get to work anyway. I'm at the sled track. I grab the sled and run down the hill with it, hoping to have several trips completed before the temperature goes from steaming to blazing. The scraping of the sled along the track brings a fresh wave of creatures to me. Once, while searching for a patch of wild berry bushes in the forest, I put my foot through a rotting carcass of an animal. The foul odor clung to my shoe for days. This stench is much worse. It's going to be a very long day and even longer night. Sometime later I collapse in the clearing. Are deserted shelters all around me. I made 4 trips to the caves, dragging the loaded sacks behind me, but I still have 2 more trips to make, and I'm coming to the end of my mental and physical reserves of energy. I want nothing more than to lie down and go to sleep, as if I could, with the sickening cloud of creatures around me. Perry still follows. He hasn't tried to talk to me again, but I hear him up there. Whenever the creatures crowd me, he clears some space with his arrows. I don't even stop walking as he shoots. What's the death of another Groundling to him? I think bitterly. I ease my leather slippers off and touch my angry blister on my heel. Moisture bursts out, and one of the creatures moans hungrily. I shove my shoe back on, disgusted, and limp into our shelter. The creatures follow me in. There's no way to secure the door against them. I fetched items from the other people's homes in the past few days since the Scourge came. Favorite toys, water sacks, winter clothes, Bear's extra spear, but I haven't been inside ours. Something about having the creatures in our home makes me feel even more revolted. I won't be able to sleep here tonight. I go back out and press my forehead to the wall. Spreading my fingers wide against the warm wood, I search for the wheel to collect the last 2 sacks. A creature moans close by. I turn my face away, too tired to move any further. It moans again, but this time it sounds like more than a moan. I stumble away and fall, skinning the palms of my hands. Are you all right? Perry yells. I forget I'm not speaking to him. Do you see the creature that was next to me just then, when I was by the shelter? Does it look any different? They all look the same, he says, repulsive. Please, Perry, look closely. Do any of them seem, I don't know, newer maybe? I can't tell him what I'm thinking. It's too horrible to say out loud. Newer? What are you getting at, Fennel? Do any of them have long, curly brown hair? Not that I see. Some of them have wisps of grayish-looking hair. Most don't have any at all. Why? What's going on? I hold my stinging hands to keep them from shaking. Nothing. I must be hearing things. But I wasn't. One of the creatures spoke. It said, "Help me." And it sounded exactly like Rose. Well, that's the end of the chapter, folks. I'll get this edited up as soon as possible, and I guess I'll see you tomorrow for chapter 5. Bye-bye for now.